Hello, my darlings, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Mariya. This channel is about spirituality. Please subscribe below so we can be YouTube friends. This video is going to be recorded from a channeled state. I channeled from my higher self or an oversoul. I channel with my eyes closed so I can ensure the integrity of the message and the strongest connection possible. I hope that you enjoy. My darlings, today we're talking about the apocalypse. What a joyful subject. The reason I wanted to bring this up is because there has been a lot of information as well as misinformation coming through on the subject lately. It is also going to be a topic of a lot of debate in the coming decades. And so I figured we might as well get the conversation rolling on our end also so that I could help dispel some myths so that I could help you potentially prepare better for what's to come, so that we could alleviate some fears. And towards the end of our time together, I will take the questions from the collective so that you guys could ask me yourself, or rather the human collective could ask me the questions that are most pressing as it pertains to the apocalypse. There have been a lot of prophecies for many hundreds of years, actually, around the apocalypse. The apocalypse is written into the Bible, as well as some of the other sacred texts. A lot of different cultures are awaiting something that is called the apocalypse. A lot of different cultures are awaiting the end times. So are we in the end times? Are we not? We're going to dive into all of this and more in this video. For those of you that don't know, we are about 1 month away from my Glastonbury retreat. And I wanted to invite you wholeheartedly to come and join me in the United Kingdom, June 26th, 27th, 28th, for a very deep transformational spiritual journey. It's a 3-day journey. We're going to be in the heart of Avalon, surrounded by the energies of the dragons, of the fairies, of the legends, the myths and legends, everything from early Christianity and Joseph of Arimathea, and as well as King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, as well as Knights Templar, actually, and the Holy Grail. All of these legends, all of these various threads of humanity are very much connected to the land of Glastonbury, the Isle of Apples. It is going to be a very deep spiritual journey. So if you are into relaxing spiritual retreats, this one's not for you. If you want deep transformation, if you want to dive 70 layers deep into your being, if you want to understand yourself better, what are the hidden patterns that are holding you back, how to heal them, there's going to be a lot of that coming through. It's a full-on channeled retreat. I'm not preparing anything other than my channel for this retreat. So I'm going to show up essentially as my higher self, and I'm going to take you through some very, very deep healing. There are only a few tickets left. They're going fast, so grab your spot. The apocalypse. There are 2 main narratives around the apocalypse as we're scanning the collective human consciousness. Narrative number 1 is the apocalypse is something that was a sign, call it, or a happening inside of this transition from 3rd dimensional reality to 5th dimensional reality. However, a lot of, call them spiritual teachers, a lot of practitioners who talk on the subject would tell you, do not worry about it. Nothing is going to happen. Nobody's going to die. There's going to be no big cataclysmic event that's going to wipe out half the planet. Don't worry about that, right? So there's a little bit of this narrative of light and love, and we're all going to just hold hands and sing Kumbaya, and it's all going to be fine because technically everybody's already ascending, and worry not because we're already in 5D. That is kind of one narrative. The other narrative, and a lot of the seers and the oracles and a lot of people with psychic abilities, different psychic abilities that belong to this camp, they have been shown visions. Everybody from, the Nostradamus to Edgar Cayce to a lot of other, call them seers, have been given visions and are still being given visions. Now, different people see different things. Some people see the earth consumed by fire. Other people see the earth consumed by water. Still, other people are seeing a lot of earthquakes. Some people see everything in combination. And when these people who are being shown visions of the end times or the end days, by the way, the same visions that have been written into the Bible, the book of the Revelations, These people, when they look at the other camp, they feel a little bit that the other camp, call it the more positive camp of spiritual practitioners, are bypassing the topic of the apocalypse, and they're kind of like gaslighting the other narrative a little bit. And it's almost like we have a lot of false positivity on one side, and we have a little bit of fear-mongering on the other side. We're going to try to walk the middle path today, not intentionally, but simply because that may be the best way to perceive the truth and to perceive the bigger picture here. And I'll explain exactly what I mean. First things first, what is an apocalypse? Outside of the fact that, yes, there are so many connotations, a lot of negative connotations. I've yet to find a positive connotation with the end times and especially the collapse of a civilization. But what is it truly from a spiritual perspective? Now, we have spoken time and time again that everything in existence moves through cycles. There are cycles big, there are cycles that are small, there are cycles that are in between. One of the bigger cycles you could experience as an incarnate human is almost like the shifting of the epochs, right? Or in this case, the shifting of dimensions. And this transition from one-dimensional, lower-dimensional consciousness, a lower density consciousness, to a higher density consciousness, the 3D to 5D, is not necessarily a smooth sailing. So this transition is specifically one such very macro type cycle. When we're talking about cycle shifts and cycle changes, what happens within one cycle is almost like one cohesive story, one cohesive movie, right? If you were in a movie theater and you bought a ticket to see a movie, you would see one cohesive movie from start to finish, most likely, unless you walked out, and you would follow a particular set of characters. Now, there are going to be, there's going to be a lot of similarities in terms of frequency about that movie from beginning to end, right? So you're probably going to be exposed to very similar energies. That being said, if you were to walk out of one movie theater and walk into another and watch a different movie, it would be a whole new cycle. What usually happens between these cycles, right, if we're kind of stepping out of the movie analogy and we're looking at the larger cycles such as, the birth of a planet, for instance, or the birth of a new epoch, these cycles cannot just transition seamlessly, or rather, they could. But one thing that needs to happen is a release of karma. So, simply put, an apocalypse is a karmic event, and specifically, it is an event where all bills are paid, while all the dues are very much front and center and facing you. So, an apocalypse is an immediate event of karmic payback at the planetary scale. So, an apocalypse is essentially a big, grand reset. And we all need those resets. We need a chance between any cycles, right? There's that point zero. Every cycle starts and every cycle ends with point zero. If you think about this energy of point zero, which is what an apocalypse is, if we're at the beginning of a cycle, it's actually a really beautiful energy because everything is built up from zero. First, there is nothing, and then that energy of zero starts to birth things. Usually, zero is the energies of the void, the cosmic womb, they call it, chaos, if you will. However, all cycles end with zero as well. And the zero that is ending is not the same zero that is beginning. That point zero, when things are ending, is the grand leveling up of the scales. It's that, call it Judgment Day. It is that point of justice. It's that point of harmony, point of balance, or coming back to balance. And when zero, this energy of zero, ends a cycle, it's actually the tearing down of old systems. It's when things have to collapse before things can be renewed again, before things can be rebuilt again. So point zero, as it relates to the end of the cycle, could be quite painful because it is the demolishing of what is, with hopes of building something new, better, bigger, stronger. Every major cycle ends with a demolishing of some sort. Every time you go to a restaurant and have a meal, eventually you're going to have to pay the bill. So it's that same sense of justice, right? You cannot just be all take. Sometimes you have to give, right? So it's the give and take balance. So the apocalypse is essentially that. At the end of the cycle, all of the karma of that cycle has to be released because nothing can be carried into the new cycle. Let's look at humanity's karma. Is there a lot of karma? What are we trying to zero out? Because I think a little bit of context would be really helpful there. When we're talking about releasing karma, at the scale that humanity needs to release the karma at right now, we're talking about personal karma, karma of the lineages of humanity, essentially from the beginning of the cycle, which is thousands upon thousands of years. That is a whole lot of collective karma to release. Now, here's where we start getting to the interesting bits, I feel like. First things first, I think the most important thing to understand is that the system that we live in, planet Earth, is actually here to help humanity work through the karma. It is not here as our adversary. It is here as our greatest ally. If the apocalypse does come in a way that it has been shown to a lot of the seers, the oracles, the prophets, if it does end up coming, it will be through a form of a natural upheaval that things are released, because it is one of the simplest and quickest ways to release human karma, is through a natural disaster. That is the quickest, fastest way known to lighter forces. Let me actually take one more step back. And one thing that we have to get grounded in is who needs the apocalypse? Like, whose plan is this? Is it the devil? Is it the bad guys? Is it the good guys? Essentially, that which we call source, right? Or that which we call God, in this case, I would use them interchangeably, is a consciousness that helps us plan and helps us pre-plan the cycles, right? So the way the system works and how the system works and this concept of the apocalypse is actually concept of God or of source, despite the fact that it is a concept of destruction, right? I think it's actually a lot easier for human beings to perceive God to be the creator and a lot harder to perceive God as a destroyer. Now, of course, for those of you that have read the Old Testament, maybe not so much because God is all over the map there. Now, I'm talking about source, which is a little bit of a different consciousness from Christian God, but this is not what this particular video is all about. The concept of the apocalypse is actually the concept that was created by the forces of light, not the forces of darkness. It is the concept that really helps amplify and release the karma so that everybody can move on to bigger and better things. Now, there is the organic way to release karma, and then there is the forced way to release karma. An apocalypse is a forced way to release karma. An organic way to release karma is through essentially just living, right? Like incarnating as a soul and taking on small chunks of karma at any given point in time, 3 to 5 karmic knots per every incarnation. That is the organic way to release karma. However, it's easier said than done, and a lot of souls actually, when they descend into a body, because they're lacking the necessary context and they have this veil of forgetfulness on this planet, a lot of karmic knots actually remain tied at the end of the incarnation. So people don't close out quite as many karmic loops as they intend to going into an incarnation. What does that actually end up creating? That creates a lot of karmic debts, right? That creates a lot of unresolved problems that almost like no matter how many times you go into a body, you try to work on a certain thing, it still remains unresolved. Imagine that times like many billion. And the reason that's times many billion is, if a single human in a single lifetime can create this deficit, or rather the surplus of karma that hasn't been worked through, multiply that by every soul that's ever lived from, the beginning of the cycle, and multiply that by as many incarnations as they had, that would give you like a general sense of how much unresolved karma humanity still has. And it is a lot, you guys. There is a lot of stuff for us to resolve. There are things that happen during the end times. During the end times, everything in nature, as well as in how the game is set up, is actually on your side as far as karmic release. Let's look at specifically planet Earth and, get a little bit grounded at what's happening with planet Earth. First, you see a lot more people being born right now. so the number of births is increasing. It's because a lot of souls are trying to squeeze a lot of incarnations and try to untie a lot of karmic knots towards the end of the cycle. So a lot of bodies are needed for that. So that's one. Two, in the end days, you have, even before the event of the apocalypse, whether that happens or not in this timeline, we're going to talk about that later, but you're going to have a lot of cataclysmic events. You're going to have a lot of wars at the end, in the end times. You're going to have a lot of pandemics in the end times. And there is a reason for that. Because each of these things that seemingly, from a very limited human perspective, could be considered bad things, all of these, call them inflammations in the body of humanity, are actually very necessary. Because it is through such inflammations that humanity is able to release a lot of karma in a single go. It is like a shot in the arm, right? And it really helps accelerate the process. So as much as there is this narrative around conspiracy theories, and I'm not saying conspiracy theories are not true, a lot of them are, by the way. That's beside the point. Because from a limited perspective, it may seem that we have a lot of, call them bad guys, that are trying to harm humanity, and they've created this crazy virus, and they're doing all of these other things, and, the shadow government and whatnot. One thing we need to understand is all of these things, all of the turmoil that is being created, is actually an opportunity for humanity to release a lot of karma. The reason that that serves us is the more karma we can release leading up to the potential apocalypse, the less need there is for an apocalypse. Let me try to rephrase what I mean, or give you like a different way to conceptualize this, because this can get a little bit out there. Imagine that we had 100 kilos of karma to work through as humanity. And essentially every, big massive earthquake, or like every big massive, fire would take away, a kilo, just using very, very simple math here. It's almost in humanity's best interest to have as many of these local happenings, like as many, hurricanes and natural disasters as possible, with that would give a chance for the land, because planet Earth holds on to karma, the water holds on to human karma, the earth holds on to human karma. And you want to have all of that karma released, because by the time we get to Judgment Day, let's use a biblical terminology here. I hate, by the way, the word Judgment Day, but whatever. And we can talk about how that's not really Judgment Day, but it's fine. Let's use that terminology. By the time we get to Judgment Day as a collective human consciousness, what's going to be judged is how much karma there is still remaining. If we're going to if we're going to get to that final step with like 99 kilos of karma still remaining, the beings of light that are going to have to orchestrate the apocalypse. And by the way, you do know that it's the beings of light, because even in the Bible, it's the archangels and it's the angels singing, or like announcing the apocalypse. It is because it is truly of light. So if we get to that point of no return, let's call it, and there's so much karma still left that those beings on, upstairs have no other means of releasing that karma, and they have to get on with the agenda of fifth dimensional consciousness, they're going to cause a cataclysm. And they're going to cause a cataclysm. It's like literally like, it's as easy as just willing it into existence, and then it's unstoppable. It's actually very, very quick to produce on planet Earth. And most likely, if that were to happen, it would be a flood again. Not the first time planet Earth got flooded as, a means of apocalypse, not the last time. It's very much a beloved, call it, refrain here. It's very much a beloved playbook to cause the Great Flood on planet Earth. Sometimes there is a great fire. That also has happened on planet Earth. It's just a lot less frequent. It actually takes a lot longer for a planet to recuperate after a great fire than it does after the flood. So most likely it's a flood, if anything. The good news is, if a lot of these localized things happen, if a lot of these local conflicts are resolved, if a lot of these smaller natural disasters are able to release a lot of the outstanding karma, by the time humanity gets to point of no return, If there is very little left, call it not 100 kilos, but I don't know, 10, 15, 20 kilos, then there's going to be a way to not have to flood the entire planet. And there's going to be a way for a very peaceful transition, a very peaceful closing of the cycle, and very peaceful ending of another cycle. Now, timelines can get a little bit fuzzy. And one thing I'll tell you is nobody, and literally nobody, not even the beings of light, can tell you the exact timing of the apocalypse, of that point of no return. And even if that timing were to be given to humanity exactly, it is not going to help anyone. Because if the year of the apocalypse given to humanity is too far away, and by the way, anything for humanity that's 50 years or longer is too far away. People just don't pay attention to things that are like that far away, right? So technically, the earlier somebody is alerted to the fact that there's an apocalypse coming, you'd think the better it would be. And if you think about it, the Bible was written a while ago, right? Like we've had over 1,000 years to deal with that. Like the book of Revelations is not a new book, let's be real, right? And there are a whole lot of Christians that believe in the Bible, and a whole lot of Christians that have read and have recited and have memorized the book of Revelations. And yet, we're still here, exactly at the spot where we find ourselves with a ton of karma. So it seems that alerting humanity well in advance is not really the playbook for, for victory here. Because people, when you give them something that's nebulous and you don't really know when it is, they don't really pay attention too much. And they're like, oh, like the future generations are going to deal with it. So the future generations we're the future generations now. If you tell people the apocalypse is coming way too soon, you get mayhem. You get a lot of fear, and people are just like paralyzed. Like what you're going to get is a lot of like deer in the headlights syndrome. People don't deal well with like deer in the headlights type of energies. It's actually been, tested by beings of light. In other words, giving the actual dates have been tested, and it backfires every single time. So it has been decided to never actually give the actual timelines, because no matter what, you cannot win. Either people don't care because it's too far away, or they care so much and they're really stifled. Like their entire lifetimes, like lives, are on hold because they're worried about the looming apocalypse. Now, I wanted to comment on the two camps. Will it or will it not be? How bad is it going to be? One thing I will tell you, one thing that is for sure, is that there is going to be some semblance of natural disasters accumulating, or accelerating rather, one way or another. And it's almost like you want that to happen, because it's actually in humanity's best interest to make sure that all of the localized conflicts get resolved. I think it's a little bit customary to think sometimes that like, for instance, I don't know, if you're a human with karma, that, like, I don't know, you did something bad and now there's karma, and you're the only one carrying that karma. It's actually not true. If you did something that you are ashamed of and that becomes a karmic knot, your entire lineage is going to hold on to that. And the memory of the land, like the earth itself, that held your body as you were committing that crime or that act, is going to carry the same karma. So what we actually have is the planet Earth now is the carrier of human karma. And a lot of the fires lately that you have seen, and, not to go into conspiracy theories, a lot of these fires didn't look real. But make no mistake, all of those fires, and I'm referring to the fires in the US, are actually a means of helping humanity get rid of that karma. Because the karma in certain parts of the land has become so big that something has got to give. And the earth is actually actively helping humanity to do so. I wish I could give you the good news and say, don't worry about any cataclysms ever again. It's not going to be the case, because make no mistake, we are living in the times that the book of Revelation spoke about. We are in the end days already, you guys. There's no turning back. We're pretty much at the finish line here. The finish line does mean that we're going to see more wars, not less wars, not fewer wars. We're going to see more strange symptoms around, more chronic conditions coming online, not less. We're going to see more like fatal diseases coming online, not less. We're going to see more turmoil, whether with the water, the earth around earthquakes, or the fires. Like, we're going to see more of that in the coming years. But you need to change your perspective around how you see these things, because all of these things it's almost like all of these natural disasters, like all of these things that obviously they're heartbreaking from a limited human perspective. You need those things because those are bitter pills, but those things are medicine. Planet Earth is very actively not only healing herself through these natural disasters, but she is helping humanity release and relieve some of that karma so that we can together and collectively avoid the Great Flood. I am not in the camp of people who believe that there is absolutely no, like essentially we are already in 5D. It's all purple rainbows and unicorns. There are no threats ahead. Humanity is going to be fine. And by the way, we have already transitioned and everybody's already, pretty much on their way to paradise. I wish that was the case. Truly, I do. And one day it will be the case. It's just not yet, right? The apocalypse in one way or another is going to hit every single timeline. I know there is this trend for jumping timelines, and I actually see people who jump timelines, spiritual people, extremely wise people, very old souls, a lot of star seeds love this concept of jumping timelines. And listen, I myself teach a lot about quantum leaps and manifestation and all of the good things, right? And obviously, my intention is to provide you the resources, the food for thought, so that you can live your best life. That said, I'm not a believer of jumping timelines or believer in jumping timelines just because you're trying to run away and because you're really, really scared. Because a lot of people who start jumping timelines and they're like, I'm going to just jump to a timeline where, the apocalypse is not in alignment with that timeline. When you actually start looking into the motivation of those beings, is there's a lot of fear. So they're jumping because there's a lot of fear. And they're like, I need to jump away into safety. I need to jump away into safety. The moment you think that you need to jump into safety, you carry with yourself the vibration of fear. You are essentially a match to the vibration of fear, which means that the timeline that you've just jumped into is going to again become the exact vibrational match to the apocalypse. So you can keep jumping into like fresh ones that don't have it, but because you're jumping with this perspective of fear, you're going to track that on the other timeline. So the question you may ask me is like, okay, Mariya, so what do we do? And the answer is very simple. You have to trust and you have to do the work. Those are the two things that are required of people in the end times. Two things: trust and do the work. And I will explain exactly what that means. Trust. Like when I say trust, right? And I guess maybe they're like one and the same. When I say do the work, is you work on your vibration first and foremost. You work on raising your vibration. You work on your shadows instead of running away from them. You do parts work. You dive into the ugly parts of yourself that you did not want to acknowledge that are even real. You heal them. You do the spiritual healing. You do the meditations. You do the retreats. You do plant medicine. All of these things are going to take you closer towards untying your own karmic knots and the karmic knots of your family, your lineage, as well as the land that you live on. All of these things are going to get you closer, right? So instead of focusing on the world at large, first focus on you and lighten up your own load and the load of your lineage. Look within first. That is where the answers are. When you gradually, like through all of this spiritual work, if you do all the things that I just mentioned, or even like a part of the things that I've just mentioned, naturally what's going to start happening to you is your vibrations are going to start rising. You're going to start rising up in vibrations. And from there, alignment to things that are beautiful, alignment to things that are positive, alignment to the best possible outcome is a given. Because if you start vibrating at the level of cleanliness, at the level of Christ consciousness, there is no way like that apocalypse could ever touch you. There's no way, right? So the way out of this vicious cycle of trying to jump timelines only to end up on the timeline that is in alignment with your fear of the apocalypse. And the only way to really work through that fear is through raising your own personal vibration, raising your frequency, by the way, becoming a match for 5D consciousness. And through that, through this process of rising up through the chakras, of opening up your higher centers, of actually letting go of fear, letting go of conspiracies, letting go of us versus them, letting go of trying to find scapegoats, letting go of putting blame on people, whether that's the shadow government or the real government or just anybody outside of yourself. Like, by letting go of division, you actually start rising up. And that is where the trust comes in. Trusting that no matter what, you're going to be taken care of. You're going to be taken care of. On any single timeline, you guys, every single timeline that we can take a look at, every single 100% of timelines, there are souls that are suffering during the end times. And there are souls that are thriving during the end times. Including, there's like this subsegment of timelines where no matter what, the Great Flood is going to happen. There's about 30% of timelines where no matter what, the flood is going to happen. There are still souls living inside of those timelines that are going to be saved, like Noah was saved inside of the ark. And there are going to be extraterrestrial ships parked right next to planet Earth. There are going to be inner Earth bunkers. There are going to be all kinds of things that people are going to be invited to if they are vibrating at a particular frequency. Entire families are going to be saved, even on timelines where there's like an entire wiping out of the human race. I just said that, and a few people on the other side of the screen just like locked up like this. I just want to acknowledge what happened. Because up until right now, I haven't really fully acknowledged that there is going to be an apocalypse. And the answer is there will be on certain timelines. Like, the book of Revelation is not lying, you guys. I don't know what you need me to tell you. It's not lying. Some timelines are going to get pretty bad. And other timelines are going to be moderately bad. I would tell you that there's about 30% of timelines where, like, it's pretty much the Great Flood, right? Like, so the entire wiping out of the human race. There's about 30% of timelines where it's like partial, when somebody presses the button called the apocalypse, like it's little parts of the earth that get damaged, but not the entire thing. And then there is the remaining about 40% of timelines, which I'm assuming is what these like brighter-eyed and bushy-tailed, spiritual people who are saying, we're already there, don't worry. I think like these people are looking there, to be fair. So it does exist. However, in these, call it 40% of timelines, where humanity is not going to align with the apocalypse, one thing is true. And that thing is, things are shifting on those timelines very rapidly for a whole lot of people. Like, massive awakening is happening to the degree that we're not yet seeing it on planet Earth just yet. There are a whole lot of forces, antagonistic forces, that are keeping us somewhere in the middle right now. And I'm not saying this to fearmonger. Instead, I'm giving you this amount of clarity so that you can make informed decisions. And the informed decision and the only way forward is understanding that there's no way out of samsara without paying the debts. Just no way out. Yes, fine, there is ascension. If you can ascend, and I mean like literally like ascended masters ascend, like the Buddha's Maitreya's ascend. If you can master that in a single lifetime, then you're golden. But 99.99999% of humanity are not going to be able to master that, because that is just a whole different ballgame. And if that is not the case, unfortunately, this is a wake-up call, because that is exactly what the last days are meant to be. When I say the last days, some people are like, oh, so when did the last days start? Like, are we like literally, did we just enter the last days? No. The last days have roughly started. Like, if we were to ask spirit right now, at the highest echelons, if we were to ask archangels, they would tell us that the last days have started around 1890, in the year 1890. So before First World War. So First World War was already in the last days, right? So it was already kind of like a pre-apocalyptic period. Both of the world wars were, right? So again, we're talking timelines that are a little bit stretched out from a perspective of a single human. Make no mistake, if you are incarnated right now, chances are you incarnated in the 20th century, like the 19th century and the 18th century. Like you've probably been incarnating a lot lately because you've been trying to release as much karma as possible for yourself, on behalf of your lineage, on behalf of your country, on behalf of your land, etc. Right? So it just happens so that in the last days, a lot more souls are having a lot more parallel incarnations, because the time is of the essence. As much as time does not exist, it is very real at the very end of the cycle. And we're all feeling the burn a little bit. But find great solace and find great liberation in the fact that an apocalypse is not for everybody. You see, it does not control you. And what I mean by that is, how do I explain it? An apocalypse is the law of the land. And it says, if your vibration is lower than X, then you have karma to release. If your vibration is higher than X, you're fine. So essentially, it is indeed like the weighing of the soul. Are you worthy? Or are you not worthy? Are you going to be able to match the earth at its 5D frequency? Or can you not because you are weighed down by the heaviness of your own actions in past lives? And have you not done a lot of inner work and outer work to release? Right? And again, it is not something to, the intention of this happening is not negative. The intention, though, is to release, right? It's a positive intention to help release something. But it will come for some people with a lot of physical suffering and a lot of physical fear. Because how did you accumulate karma in the first place? Probably by creating a lot of fear in others or living in suboptimal states, right? So you kind of created it in the physical and you're going to have to pay your dues in the physical realm as well. I'm getting questions from the collective. We haven't even gotten to the Q&A part, but there's been questions from the collective of like, Mariya, so when is it? When is it? Is it 2035? Is it 2045? And a part of me really does not want to answer this question, precisely because of what I told you earlier in this video. If I gave you the exact dates of, call it Judgment Day, it would be a game you cannot win, because either you would completely disregard everything that I'm saying because it's too far away, or you would be so scared because it would feel so soon that you would be completely paralyzed and you wouldn't be able to focus on anything else that you need to do. And by the way, you need to be focused on everything else that you need to do. Because technically, this karmic release, this point of no return, it is an individual game. Yes, it's a collective thing, right? It's going to happen to a lot of people. But you're going to be judged against almost on your actions, right? Like it's almost like, yes, we are a part of this greater collective, but you're going to have to answer for your own actions and not anybody else's. And there's a lot of solace in that because that you can control. So focus on your own karma is the point. Focus and put your energy, instead of being worried about the end times, into releasing what can be released, working through your blocks, becoming a better human. And by the way, I think this probably would not be complete if we didn't look into some of the harder things for humanity to release, some of the patterns that could cause humanity the most mayhem. Why don't we look really at maybe 3 knots, we'll see how many want to come through, but at least 3 of the knots, of the patterns within you individually as well as within the human collective that could align us, if not worked through, to the worst case scenario. What are the patterns? Pattern number 1, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Oof. That one's going to hurt you guys. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth is going to hurt. It sounds conceptually right. It sounds like, okay, well, revenge, they took this away from me. I have to go after them, blah, blah, blah. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth is the absolute opposite of oneness consciousness. It's cutting one arm because the other arm did something wrong. It's just makes no logical sense. And then you're armless, this whole concept of because the eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth is that ultimate division. And that is what's going to come and bite humanity like nothing else. It's that divisive consciousness. It's like the divide and conquer consciousness. It's like my way or the highway. And it's this antagonism. It's our inability to forgive that's going to really cause the avalanche of the Great Flood, if it were to happen. On those timelines that it does, this eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, is precisely what gets humanity in trouble, right? Let's look at these conflicts, war conflicts, that have been going on, some of them for many decades, overtly or covertly. And some of these conflicts are brewing, very local conflicts, where, like nations are living in proximity to one another. All of a sudden, they start, having that fight. That war consciousness, that eye for an eye consciousness is precisely the problem. It's that our inability to forgive. It's our inability to rise up and open our hearts to the degree that we understand that by trying to harm another being, we ultimately only end up hurting ourselves. And it's going to be us that pays the price. So that eye for an eye. The second one is egoism. Is this massive self-centeredness of human beings that is really the culprit. And it is our belief that we are superior as a species. It is that superiority complex compared to nature, compared to human beings, compared to other beings, such as animals and plants, that we consider inferior to us in consciousness. And when I say, I'm really referring to the greater human family. So the fact that you consume them as food, I'm talking about animals in this case because plants actually did sign up to be consumed as food. But if you're consuming animal products, that is precisely the only reason why is because of this disconnection or disconnectedness of this separation and ego, really. And like the negative aspects of ego. Because you see, animals were meant to be humanity's children. That's why for our animals that are like pets, that we consider pets, there's so much caretaking in that. There's so much nurturing aspect. That's why a lot of people consider their dogs to be their children, because that is how God, Source, intended the animals to be. All of the animals are meant to be our children. It is our sacred responsibility to take care of them and not consume them as food. And yes, there were times in the past where food was scarce and we could not really have agriculture to the degree that we can have right now. And at the time, the only survival technique or the only survival mechanism was to eat another living being, to eat another animal, to eat essentially somebody who's meant to be your child, the animal that God wanted you to protect. And so that's when humans started consuming animal flesh. It was never meant to be that way, though. In the long term, we were meant to graduate from that animal consciousness. It's a very low level vibration, you guys. And that is going to come and bite humanity like nobody's business. So I will tell you this. If you guys are worried about the apocalypse, consider going vegetarian, if not vegan. Truly, I mean it. And ask other people to consider that as well. Because that level of karma, that level of murder is going to come and bite us big time. Because make no mistake, murdering a cow is murder. And no, cows are not just sacred in India. The energy of the cow, somebody needs to hear this, so I'm going to say this, is one of the formative energies of our universe. One of the feminine energies that created this universe is the energy of the cow. That's why the cow is sacred, and we live in the Milky Way, the milk that the cow gave. We live in the galaxy that was produced by the milk of the cow. So if you're eating beef, think again. Because if you're killing the sacred animal that gave you life, you're essentially killing. It's like the equivalent, the karma of that is like the equivalent of killing your mother. And then doing that over and over and over again because you like your hamburgers so much. I'm just saying. And you may hate this video, and you may hate me for saying this. You may live in an illusion where eating meat is healthy for you because you need protein. By the way, there's a whole lot of plant protein that is better for you, not worse. So you may continue living in the illusion that it is okay to consume animal products, to eat meat, and to kill, to stay alive. But I will tell you this. Then do not be surprised if the part of the, the apocalypse trajectory that you find yourself on is the earth that gets wiped out. Just don't be surprised. Just don't be surprised. Because there is the cause and then there is the effect. And nobody, and I mean nobody, can avoid the consequences of their actions forever, because the consequences are coming for all of us. That is the sad truth, no matter how much you hate what I just said. Let's look at the third aspect of, like maybe the third karmic knot. So we said an eye for an eye as a consciousness. We said this egoism of like really not understanding that you are a part of every other living being around you, that you're a part of Mother Gaia, and you cannot act as if you are superior. So that superiority complex is the second. The third one is a closed heart. The third is a closed heart and everything that humanity is doing to humanity, outside of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Every single time you don't have the best intentions towards another human being, it does create a lot of karma. There's a whole lot of karma in here around not meaning well, even towards your brothers and sisters, the other human beings around you. And literally, there are like layers in here that we can talk about. There's all kinds of things in here that are not very pretty. It's just like any single time that you are wishing badly upon somebody, know that you're wishing it to yourself. And that eventually that kind of karma is going to catch up with you. There's no other way. You see, the end times, and there is a reason, and the reason there are so many prophecies is because all of these prophecies are meant to alert humanity, to stop us in our tracks so that we pay attention and we listen. And so that we know that eventually, everybody has to pay their debts. And there is no free-for-all. And despite all of the warnings, we see what we see in the outside world. There are going to be more prophecies than are going to come about the end days. There are going to be even more prophecies and a whole lot of other things that people are going to see the closer we get to the point of no return. We're not there yet. And if I were to give you a little bit of a glimpse, there is still time. There is still time for you personally and for humanity to change its course. Not a lot of time, but there is still time. And that should give you hope. Because when there is still time, that means that you could start shifting your own behaviors. And, in the choices that you make every day, you can start becoming a little bit more aware. That means that there is still time for you to raise your own vibrations. That means that really what you're going to be judged on is how much light your body can hold. The energy of death, the energy of jealousy, the energy of me versus them, the energy of zero-sum game, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. All of these are the energies of darkness inside of you, and they're going to weigh you down. And really, the biggest remedy is opening up your heart. Because if you were to open up your heart, you could not act towards other living beings, human or otherwise, in the way that you could act towards those beings with your heart closed. Because with your heart closed, there's no really discernment. There is no true awareness. With your heart closed, you're just going through the motions. You're born into a little human body, and you're born into, call it a meat-eating society, not to pound on meat eaters. And then you're like, oh, this is normal. Everybody eats steak. Everybody eats hamburgers. Everybody eats whatever, hot dogs. And it's just normal for you. Yes, it's only normal until you open up your heart and you wake up and you realize, actually, no, certain things that are normal in society are actually atrocious acts against life itself. And if you commit enough atrocious acts against life, it's going to eventually take its own. Yeah, the apocalypse is the great death, essentially. It's like the ending of the cycle is the death of a civilization. And if there's not enough energy of life inside of you, you're not going to be able to align with the beginning of the new cycle. It's not going to be pretty. It's not to say that you're going to disappear at soul level or somehow your higher self is going to get punished, but you're going to be a vibrational match to planets that are not so pretty. And by the way, you're not going to get next time, right? If you don't pass and if you completely disregard all of the warning, there's going to be a downgrade in your level of comfort in your future incarnations. So you're going to get 2 planets and planetary consciousness that are actually suboptimal compared to planet Earth. They're not going to be as pretty. A lot of the worlds that are being prepped for the souls that are not going to pass this lesson are desert worlds, you guys. Desert worlds. Kind of like the not so pretty stuff from like Dune. Like the sci-fi movie Dune, but only like less cute somehow. And a lot more dangerous. So these kinds of worlds are being prepped for souls that cannot make it through this 5D transition of planet Earth. I mean, you could choose that at soul level. You could be like, I don't care. Come what may, I'm not going to change. The choice is absolutely yours. You don't have to change. Nobody's forcing you to change, but do realize that your life is going to get worse and not better. And trying to survive in a desert-like world, is not easy. Because the number one thing the desert-like worlds lack is water. What is water? The epitome of. Water, of course, is the proxy for mother, divine mother. Water is also the proxy for love. So in worlds where there are no water, there is no love. And the only way you can align with those types of worlds is if there is no love in your heart. Right now, if your heart remains closed to the suffering and pain of other beings, human or otherwise. If your heart remains closed and if you are okay with it, then do not be surprised when you are going to be transitioned to a tough, harsh environment with no water. Because it's very much a possibility. And again, the reason I'm saying all of that is not to to create fear, because that's the last thing that you need, but to tell you that you are the creator of your own destiny. You are the forger of your own future, and everything is in your hands. There's enough time to turn around any amount of negative karma yet. Right now, this moment of time, if you were to hear this message, if you were to truly hear me with your heart, with your soul, there is enough time for you to still turn everything around and re-emerge victorious. And by the way, planet Earth is helping with that, right? Sometimes I think when we look at all of these cataclysms, we believe it's like the Earth is against us. Planet Earth is against us, and she is acting out. Planet Earth, you guys, loves you so much, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how much she loves you. Gaia is willing to go to the very end of ends, to pursue every single mean possible to recover, to help humanity recover. And if it wasn't for planet Earth, humanity, like specifically the voice and the vote of Mother Gaia, humanity would have been wiped out a long time ago. A long time ago. So Mother Gaia is standing for humanity. Despite the fact we have been polluting her, despite the fact that most people don't even think she's a sentient being, despite the fact that humanity has been killing her other children, she is standing by humanity. And she has been postponing the apocalypse. She has been pleading with the higher ups to give humanity another chance. Are we going to rise up to the occasion? Is the question. I'm going to take a couple of questions from the collective. I know this was a completely uncomfortable topic, you guys, but what are you going to do? Awareness at any cost. Any question from the collective, as long as it serves you guys. The question is, how do I know that my vibrations are high enough? And how do I know that I'm going to be saved? How do I answer this question? Without creating more mayhem and more fear. Let's just say that if you are alive right now on planet Earth, it is because there's some work for you still left to do. So, most likely, which is not to say that if the apocalypse were to hit, you would be killed, but it is to say that your, reputation is not spotless. There's something for you to work through. So assume that there is work to do no matter who you are. Even if you are the monk in the Himalayas. There is work for you to do. And especially if you're just a regular person, there's work for you to do. There is work for us to do. And remember, when you do the work, you don't just do it on your own behalf. You do it on the behalf of your lineage. You do it on the behalf of your country. You do it on the behalf of the land. So all of us, like light workers, take a lot of light workers. Light workers don't come here, with so much karma that they're going to be murdered in the apocalypse. Obviously not. Light workers are going to be saved. So if you're a starseed, most likely this does not really relate to you. However, right, there are some starseeds that have gotten so ingrained in the human collective karma that they became a vibrational match to them. And that becomes a problem, right? Now, if you are a starseed, it is your sacred duty, most likely, your sacred responsibility to help people through this transition, and not necessarily to help avoid the apocalypse, but help minimize whatever could happen. Help soften the blow, right? That's why a lot of you I know are doing grid works, and you're doing a lot of light code infusions and, everything else that you're doing. So understand, right, that when you've kind of fixed yourself, really, how you bring the most light to this planet is through sacred service, is understanding that you are one with every single being that's out there. So once you've actually, if you feel like you are good already, then understand that there are still other people out there that potentially need help. And I'm not saying, hey, become a savior or become a martyr on behalf of humanity. That's not what it is. But know that there is more work to do. No matter how much you think you have done, there is more shadow work to do. There is a way to do shadow work at the collective level. There is a way to do meditations at the collective level and prayer at the collective level, etc. There is literally all hands on deck in the end times, including Gaia is helping, including all the kingdoms of Gaia are helping. Plant medicines, right? Consider that if you haven't. That could really jumpstart and help propel you to that next step. I'm very intentionally not going to answer specifically how you figure out if you are going to make it or you're not going to make it. I will tell you this. Your heart knows the answer. In your heart of hearts, you already know. Because as I'm saying these words, your heart is either heavy or your heart is light. And if your heart is light and kind of like jumping up in your chest, almost like it's light and it's going up, then most likely you have enough light in your body. If your heart is a little bit heavy and you are completely resisting this message and completely resisting me and everything I'm saying, or it just like feels heavy and sad, there's work for you to do. And there is time. And that's the beauty of it. And that's the beauty of it. And the reason I'm not going to give you anything more specific than that is because I don't want anybody to tune out because they think they're already saved. Because as you're going through your human experience, you're accumulating karma all day and every day. So your work is never over. And, and isn't that beautiful? I'm going to take another question. Anything relating to the apocalypse? Somebody is asking, isn't it collective programming? So many people are channeling about the end days and there's all of these like cataclysms. Isn't that collective programming? Like, wouldn't we be better off not knowing? Actually, no. The answer is we would not be better off not knowing. It has been measured in previous cycles, right? Remember, this is not the first rodeo. Planet Earth is not the first planet in the history of the universe to go through something like this. This is like a tried and true process, you guys. It's been done and dusted so many times. Like, it's like at this point a very well-oiled machine. And actually, it has been measured that on planets where absolutely no serious warnings are given, a lot more people are lost in the apocalypse because everybody's just living like tomorrow's, going to be a bright day and nobody worries about anything. And because of that, nobody's doing the work, but people are just chilling. Everybody's very relaxed. So no, it's been proven that knowing and being aware of these things actually sets human beings in this case, on a better trajectory. No, it does not being aware of something like that does not necessarily cause the absolute worst case scenario to manifest. And by the way, like on the current timeline that we're at, is there going to be an apocalypse or is there not? The answer is it's still in the works. The beings of light that are curating this process don't yet know. Everything is up in the air. They're watching humanity. 5 years ago, the answer was like, yeah, most likely. most likely everything is going to be wiped out. Now, they're still watching. And they're watching because Gaia has been pleading. And they're like, give them another chance. I believe in them. Look, their hearts are going to open up. And of course, the solar system, the entire solar system is on board. The sun is on board. That's why the sun has been sending a solar flare. It's like nobody's business. Is because it wants to jumpstart all of our circuits and all of our systems. It wants to jumpstart our hearts first and foremost, so we don't have to go through this. Now, of course, we're gonna move on to the new cycle. By hook, by crook, one way or another, it's gonna happen because planet Earth is moving on. I appreciate this question though about negative programming, and I think it's a very valid one to address. So thank you. Somebody's asking, so what is the drawback of the other perspective, right? Or like, what are the dangers of the other perspective of all of these beautiful souls that are saying, oh, don't worry, there's definitely not going to be an apocalypse. All these people are fear mongers. Like, what is the danger of that perspective? Or is that a beautiful perspective? The problem with that perspective is there's a whole lot of humanity that actually needs to pay attention to their karma. There's a whole lot of humanity that needs to look at themselves in the mirror and finally acknowledge that the trajectory that they have been on is not right. It's not just, and there's going to have to be payback. And if, telling those kinds of people, like, don't worry, it's all going to work out, beings of light is just going to protect everybody, that does not serve their own personal evolution. Ultimately, we're here on this planet for one reason only, is because we want to grow at soul level. We want to grow, we want to evolve, we want to become better. And to tell everybody, you know what, it's going to be fantastic no matter what you do, like go murder people, like go start a war, it's going to be fine. That does not serve anyone either. And I'm not saying that the people who are more positive looking are saying those things. But again, what this kind of like level of, I don't want to call it naivete, but almost like positive bias, right? Like that level of positive bias. The problem with that narrative is that the people who should be paying attention stop paying attention. And that means that when the point of no return happens, when we reach that point zero, they're going to be hit the hardest and it's going to be without warning. And then those souls would rightfully be like, well, why haven't you guys like raised the alarm? Why have you given me this false sense of calm that everything is fine? And it's not yet. Like this battle is not over, you guys. And it's not because of the bad guys. And stop blaming and finding scapegoats because it has nothing to do with the bad guys or whoever you labeled as such. It all has to do with our karma. The choices that we made and did not make that were not aligned with the greater good or the highest good. All right, my darlings. I hope this was helpful. I know this is a very emotionally charged topic,